Welcome to November, and that means that, Ishizu cards go legal in just a couple of days. Isn't that excellent? Welcome to Tier 0 Purgatory, supposedly. Make sure you guys smash the living crap out of that subscribe button so you guys don't miss out more awesome content. Number 1 on our list of top 5 decks here is going to be Naturia. Now, Naturia is kind of bumped along here along the way. The last video I had this in this section, but this is now post the Ishizu new cards. Now, for those of you that don't know, the Ishizu cards are going to basically create a facilitation dumping mechanism. I know a lot of words there. It's basically going to allow this deck to do a whole bunch of dumping. It's going to allow you to get access to the Naturia tree when you mill, which is in turn going to get you some searchability. Because, fun fact, the tree searching isn't a once per turn. Oh boy. So you also got some brand new Naturia cards that give you the ability to drop the tree to add, and then you basically get 2 very big negates by, having the ability to mill top 2 instead of tributing your monsters, and then you contribute your monsters for an additional negate. Well, you also get to use the Ishizu cards as an engine to stop other Ishizu cards. And what I mean by that is, if you play against Tearlaments, they go to stack up all of these large effects on you, like, Chain Link 5, all of these tier effects. If you have one of the 2 down that allows you to shuffle targets back into the deck, you get to take those resources away from your opponent, because the Tearlaments fusion monsters have to basically use those tier monsters in the graveyard for their own effects to fusion summon. So basically, you get this very strong anti-meta deck that, unfortunately, is a good deck, but it's going to take a lot of players a lot of time to kind of get this deck down. And while I do think that it will be a very, very, very strong contender, it's not going to see a very large amount of play because it has a very niche audience, in my opinion. So, yes, this deck will be at the dinner table. It will be very strong, but I think that's something I want to put out here. Now, the rest of this video going forward for 2 and 3 here will be interchangeable with some of the stuff when we get down into the roguish section, so bear that in mind. So next up here is Exosister. Now, the reason why I want to put Exosister here is, considering all of these graveyard shenanigans, man, oh man, you got to expect at some point that there will be one Exosister, maybe 2 to 3 Exosister decks out there that will basically shine through like a diamond. and I really do wholeheartedly mean that, all right? Like, Dimension Shifter is a fantastic card, all right? That card will steal games for you against Exosister or any of these other Ishizu-based decks. Like, you got to remember that at the end of the day, Ishizu tier is the strongest version out there. And then, Naturia is like a little bit further behind it. And then there are other decks out there that will play the package. You might not have seen those yet, but, such a good milling package does enter into the game at something interesting. So a deck like Exosister, something that already wants to play, Dimension Shifter, and then, obviously the rest of the deck that goes, hey, you just interrupted, touched your graveyard. Well, congratulations. Now I can use all of my devastating effects to close out the game. Problem is the rest of the ceiling on the metagame gets much higher, and the place that Exosister kind of sits will maintain itself. That's kind of where, like, my problem is with this deck right now is, the Ishizu stuff basically is the best point ever to play Exosister. Problem is, it's still Exosister. So I'm not trying to say that the deck is bad. It's just the deck didn't get any new tricks. The deck still relies on a lot of the same gimmicks that it had presently. It's just, man, when you see a mill 10 come down in a stack of like 5 effects on the chain, you're just like, and you go second. Exosister has to go first in order to be at the peak point in its metagame performance. If not, it's just kind of a sad day for it. But this deck I've seen can side winner cherry, so maybe there's something there. Next up is Floowandereeze. I know putting Floowandereeze at number 3 does not feel the best to me. When I made this list, I was like, I don't necessarily agree with having Floowandereeze so high, but like I said, it is completely interchangeable with the rest of what's going on here. So the reason why Floowandereeze is kind of a top 5 contender here, is the fact that this deck still, it has the most ignorant game plan in the world. And I've read a whole bunch of posts from people being like, I'm sick of getting bystealed, I'm sick of, getting, X effect dropped against me, I'm just going to go back to Floowandereeze. I mean, Floowandereeze is that go-to strategy. So many people will always revert back to Floowandereeze with the same strong mentality. And I agree at the end of the day. Floowandereeze is... It's the go-to when something goes wrong. The problem with Floowandereeze, though, is you're going first matchup isn't necessarily it's the best way to go. You're going second matchup, I mean, yeah, you get access to Mystic Mine, you get access to Dark Ruler no more. You have these power cards built into your deck. I mean, you even have Ultimate Slayer to clean up a lot of these things. It's just going to come down to, what combination of cards do I want to build into my deck? What are my tech choices? Because I feel like going into a format where you have one of the craziest, devastating graveyard conditions in the game, it's Dimension Shifter or bust, or, Mystic Mine or bust at the overall end of the day here. So... I don't know. I think the Floowandereeze can probably, weather the storm. I guess pun intended there. But it's what comes on the higher end of things is just it's not going to be a fun format. It really isn't. But I guess if you play Floowandereeze, you will have a chance to kind of play the format a little bit. All right, ignorance in the game of Yu-Gi-Oh ends up being a very good thing. So yay, more Dimension Shifter decks. You love to see it, right? Next up is going to be Spright. So not a lot has really changed here in the grand scheme of things. Spright got Sprint, which gives you access to the Nimble package, which is absolutely amazing. All right, you can go mid extension combo. You can go ahead and set up some additional combo pieces along the way off of Sprint, which is kind of nice actually. Sprint adds a nice little piece to the puzzle here. And, post YCS, I'm sure you've seen, how good Sprint can actually be at this point. But to be honest with you, was Sprint like the go-to, piece to put this deck back on the map? It definitely makes a difference. I mean, between this and the Runic Spright deck, both of these decks will be your contenders, kind of holding down the metagame until, a devastating Eradicator Epidemic Virus comes through and wipes your Runic package out. But Spright definitely will be that deck that will kind of sit at the table as like the contention against, Tier Spright. But the problem is it's still night and day difference between the two, unfortunately. Tier will still be very far ahead in terms of what it does. The good news, though, is Spright does get access to Dimension Shifter and Reaper as well. And Spright already being this, kind of, asshole-ish deck that it is, a full Spright combo with, like a Dimension Shifter post side deck, you're like, oh, I open Shifter, cool, now I can go ahead and sit on my board, and the tier player's like, there's nothing I can do about this. Any deck that can play Shifter arguably has a much better chance going forward here. So still kind of putting Spright on that pedestal here, watching it spin around and go, all right, this is your chance, do something. Show the world that, you are the hope that we need to see at the end of the day here. And I think there is a chance for it. So, Spright. And then the projected Tier 0 deck is Tearlaments Ishizu. We finally have reached the scariest point in the format, according to a lot of the playtesting, a lot of the doom glooming. I mean, it is a strong deck. Let's just be honest here. A deck that can, chain up this many effects just off of one RNG mill. This deck is the definition of RNG, and it's actually kind of scary to me what ends up happening here when you let something like this exist. Now, hopefully we get a ban list to clean this up, but the next 2 months are going to be a pretty pathetic story here, where you're going to see this massive monster running around in the format, and I guarantee you there are going to be a lot of players who are going to be taking a month or two breaks because of the power of this deck. Now, what makes it so powerful? All these Ishizu cards. I shouldn't need to tell you much about that. All right, you have a mill 10. I also get an eruption effects to shuffle back cards from both players' graveyards. No, a little piece of the exchange of the spirits if you choose to play it. Exchange of the spirits can end up being a brick in some of these builds. That's kind of like the optional piece. All right, it's like, do I want to sprinkle some exchange of the spirits on top of my cake and enjoy it? Well, the answer is it's totally up to you. I will say, now that this is here now, it's basically, you have a challenger, you know what you gotta beat, and it's gonna be the Ishizu cards. So the Bysteel cards and, well, the Bysteel cards would be your best friend. So we're gonna see Exosister definitely evolving to cater for that. Alright, please, leave a comment down below, tell me what you guys think. I will cover some of the more interesting decks, something like Bysteel, Dragon Link, Dragon Maid, and all of those good cards in the next video. Peace out, guys. Patrons, thank you.
Thank you so much for watching. Check out these other videos.